Quintessential Harlem girl, Gracie Award winner, and lifelong New Yorker Bevy Smith is the host of Sirius XM's Bevelations on Radio Andy. Once a wildly successful luxury fashion publishing exec, Bevy shifted her professional goals over a decade ago to pursue a life in front of the camera. A pop culture aficionado and fashion expert, Bevy served as moderator on Bravo TV's Revolutionary Fashion Queens and was also a former co-host on the nationally syndicated Page Six TV. Bevy continues to be part of the Wendy Williams show Style Squad and Smith's debut book, Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, Bestie, which details her transition from a fashion advertising executive into a media personality, was published through Andy Cohen Books, the new imprint on Henry Holt and Company on January 12th, 2021. Now, also for the past 5 years, Bevy has hosted Fashion for Action, an annual fundraiser for Housing Works, a New York-based thrift store chain and advocacy group that helps find appropriate housing for people living with HIV and AIDS. In 2017, Smith was named Community Champion of AIDS organization Harlem United. And additionally, Bevy is on the board of Cool Culture, a charity devoted to raising awareness among underprivileged children. Bevy is also a formal and informal mentor to many. She takes great pride in being part of WEEN, Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. But she is that and so much more, y'all. She is definitely a mother, a auntie, a bestie, and I'm blessed to say that she's also my friend, Bevy Smith. How you doing, Bevy?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here with you, Ricky, and congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you so much. It means so much to have you here. I appreciate the support. You've always, by the way, let me just do this up front. You have been one of those people from the moment you walked in my life. You have been an advocate for, a supporter of, and encouraged me in all my crazy, wild, creative endeavors. And it means the world to me. And I appreciate it. And I just want other people to know that that's the kind of person you are.
Well, thank you, my love. But I always tell people, you guys make me look good because, everyone that I ever champion really turns out to be worth the champion. Like, I not to pick winners. It's just a gift I have. I can see people and I can see clearly who they are and who they're meant to be. And I just am able to see that. And then that means that I've amassed this really wonderful group of incredibly successful friends that just happen to be folks that we've come up through the ranks together a lot of times, or just new people that I meet that I'm like, you got something there. And it's just the encouragement that I received when I was a kid and throughout my life, actually. I've always received, in the streetcar named Desire, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers.
Kindness.
And yes, and that's something that I kind of really kind of gravitate to. When Drake put out that song, No New Friends, that didn't really work for me because I welcome new people into my life all the time. And you know what? 10 years ago, you were a new person to me, and now we're dear friends. So there's that.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you there. That no new friends thing doesn't work for me. I think we both have that gift of discernment. Like God don't drop people in our lives and ain't supposed to be there. And then if every now and then they sneak through, we stop them at the gate because we know what it is. But again, I just thank you because even though you know those things and you do those things, you have to still say yes to doing it. You have to make that decision to do it. So appreciate it. So how is your 2021 starting so far?
Been great. I mean, I've really just been on the book tour, it's been incredible. And I've done everything from a Good Morning America to a Breakfast Club and everything in between. And so it's been really, really awesome to just be out, not out because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, but to have my message get out and to also have this book in the world because now that clears my plate for so much more for what's next. I'm not one to rest on my laurels. And so, I am already working on my next pivot.
I feel you. And I trust that is absolutely the case. People have laughed and they tell me this all the time. Interviewing people when they're in the middle of a press tour is probably one of the hardest things you can do because they're tired of answering the same questions over and over and you're tired of hearing the answers. So, we'll try to remix this a little bit and get some more stuff out of you, but really it's all about you. It's your life and it's all about this book. And let's just start at the beginning. Like, tell me about this title, Bevelations. What is a Bevelation?
A Bevelation is really a revelation, but it's seen through the prism of a bevy. Me. And it really came from, I was a part of a TV pilot that Andy Cohen put together maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, maybe, before Fashion Queen. So however long that was, I can't even keep all these dates straight. But before Fashion Queens, and he put together a pilot, and there were a bunch of really big personality people on a panel about fashion. And it was like Bethany, and it was like all these like, oh, Valerie Steele was actually on that panel.
Valerie was on the panel?
Valerie was on that panel. There were lots of different, Simon Doonan, formerly of Barney's, now a TV personality. Like, so all these different types of people were on the panel. And at the time I was so new to doing TV that I didn't want to be perceived as the loud Black woman. So when on a panel, you have to make your voice heard.
Right.
So you can't sit there and be quiet and wait for them to give you a chance to talk. That doesn't work on a panel. But I was doing that. So every time I saw like a clear opening, I would be like chime in with something pithy and smart and funny, but it would only be when I could get in there. That doesn't really work on a panel. So I just remember, you know, Andy being like, you know what? I have something else I think I want you to do. And it was kind of like man on the street interviews. So I would go and, you know, just like interview people about current events and about fashion and things like that. Pop culture, I mean, not current events, but pop culture and fashion and things. But talk to absolute strangers on the street kind of thing. And he said, we'll call it Bevelations. I said, oh, I like that. So the show didn't get picked up, but I took that damn name and I ran with it, I'll tell you that much. And then when he offered me a radio show, I was like, well, it has to be called Bevelations. And so that's Bevelations there. And I've been really blessed and fortunate. Ricky, just, you know, today I posted an interview that I had with Grace Jones. And, you know, Grace Jones is like an amazing, candid woman, but she told me that Gaga had no soul. She told me that Kim Kardashian knocked off her picture, that Jean Paul Gaultier did. Like she was, and those are Bevelations. Like I don't, like you said, when you're working with people that are doing a press junket, oftentimes you get the same story. And honestly, some interviewers like that. They don't want anything different. They're like fine with the same story that you've given to 10 other interviewers that you just had. But, you know, for me, I like a Bevelation. And Grace Jones gave me a bunch of Bevelations. Kevin Hart has given me Bevelations. So I've had these really wonderful, wonderful opportunities to interview big stars in the middle of press junkets, but I always try and get something a little special out of them.
Yeah. And you're the kind of soul that kind of warrants that. People want to tell you their business because they know they can trust you.
But I don't go in for salacious stuff.
Right.
Like I don't care about who you fuck. Oh, excuse me. I don't care about who you're sleeping with. I don't care about.
Just as you want to be on this show.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to ask you those kind of things because that's not really what I care about unless it's something that you want to talk about. But otherwise, I don't really care. But I do want to know about your career, your trajectory, all that kind of stuff, which is the kind of stuff that I cover in Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, Bestie. I just realized you didn't show the book, so I'm going to show my own book.
Absolutely. You know, and I had it ready. I didn't get this, so we got it double time.
Okay.
It's a great read, by the way. I actually read the book, the whole book. It was a tall task. I had a busy week preparing for this and a couple other interviews, but I was like, I have to read this book. First of all, I got to read it because you're my friend. And secondly, obviously, it's my job to read it and know it. So yeah, I really enjoyed the book. And I want everybody listening to understand that this is a great book. It's some great stories. It's got a great energy, great vibe. But importantly, it's really something that's going to inspire you. It's going to give people a sense of, you know, it's never too late to walk into your dreams, into your authentic self, which is really what this podcast is about. It's about discovering and loving and embracing your authentic self. And so to that end, tell me, you know, why now? Why write a book right now?
Well, honestly, because I received the book deal. So when people want to give you money, you should receive it. You should say thank you. You know, it's not easy for someone who's never written a book and that's a Black person to receive a 6-figure book deal, but I did. And so when I was given that opportunity, I was like, well, I guess I've got something to say then. But honestly, I knew I had something to say because throughout the years, people have been asking me on social media for advice about how to change their life. Because on social media, people knew kind of like my career trajectory, and they knew that I had been at Vibe and at Rolling Stone and had this very successful career in fashion advertising. And then they started to see my trajectory as becoming a media personality from doing, you know, list shows on VH1 and BT and E, to writing things like, you know, writing for Interview magazine or for Paper magazine, Glamour, different things like that. And then, of course, they started to see me really come into my own when I started getting my own, you know, shows that I was actually a host on. But in the middle of all of that, which is something that, you know, I really want your listeners to take in, is that, you know, I was broke but blissful. I ran out of money, and I was still very happy. Now now I'm not going to tell you I wasn't stressed at times, because going to housing court is a stressful thing. And going to housing court to make sure your parents are not evicted is a stressful thing.
Yeah, that's right.
But in the middle of all of it, I was still very, very happy, and I understood that I had a lot to be grateful for, because while the money had not caught up with me yet, everything that I quit my job to do, I was actually doing. And so I was like, okay, this is an indication. This is a sign from God. And so I want to just talk a little bit about that, like how so many times people literally do not understand that God gives us signs. And it doesn't have to be these big, ostentatious aha moments. And, you know, it doesn't have to be these dramatic things that people think of. Like, I guess people would think of, you know, God giving me a sign by him giving me Fashion Queens without having to audition for it. Yeah, but that's like an obvious thing. Mm-hmm. But the little things are things like this. Like, I'm actually broke, but yet I have all these people that rally around me and are like, we're going to give you this kind of job that can hold you over. And then, like, when I decide to create Dinner with Bevy, I make one phone call to someone who used to be in this intern at Vibe magazine, who I had mentored. And then all of a sudden, she's booking a dinner with Bevy for Music Soul Child. That was my first ever dinner with Bevy. Oh, wow. And so these are things that you need to be grateful for. Mm-hmm. It's just, you can't wait until you get the big moment. Right. The little tiny increments of gifts that God puts into your life and on your path. That's what you should be thankful for. We can all be thankful for this book right. deal. Or that's easy to be grateful for because it's an obvious win. Mm-hmm. But, you know, sometimes the wins are a little quieter and they're still just as good.
Right. And those wins include just waking up and breathing every day.
Yeah.
That's a win. Be grateful for that. That energy of being grateful brings more of the good stuff to you. I think it's also in there, you know, Bevy, for you, somebody like you, especially, you know, we're all people on our journey. We have good days, bad days, our ups or downs, but you also have always been kind of a gracious person and a giving person, even in your previous iterations as not the happiest boss in the world. I trust that you know, did some really nice things for people along the way. And those are seeds. Those are seeds that you're planting. And sometimes that harvest, you know, grows and you can come back and reap that harvest. Tell me a little bit more about, like, what's the underlying theme of the book? What really gets to the core what this book is about?
Well, really, it's the number one Bevelation. It gets greater later. Really, honestly, that's it. You know, because when I look at my old life, which was really an incredible life, which was a very a successful and shiny life, and it was a life that most people would envy, I knew that it wasn't enough for me any longer. And I decided to change my life. And I did that at the age of 38. And I got my first TV show, hosting an actual show at the age of 45. And now I'm putting out my first book at the age of 54. So you can't tell me it don't get greater later. I'm living proof of that.
A fabulous 54, I might add. Black don't crack. And I see it up close, you guys. Trust me, this is not chutes and ladders and mirrors and smoke. This is the real Black woman doing her thing. Yeah. You know, also, you've been one of the most authentic people I've ever known. Like, you are you all day, every day. Now, we're not all necessarily born that way. What was your journey to, and just touch on it, because I don't want to give away too much of the book, but, you know, what's some of the signposts on that journey for you to being your authentic self? And what are some of the tangibles that being authentic have brought you in your life and career?
Well, I just want to go back to the original question of the authenticity. I got away from my most authentic self when I was like in my teens, because I wanted to be cool and I wanted to fit in. And so I kind of left who I call Little Brown Bevy, and that's who I am at my core. And I left her, and I didn't really bring her out to play too much, you know what I mean? Through all my various iterations, which were, I was, you know, Big Bev, no, I was MC Bestie in high school. And then in my party years, in my 20s, I was Big Bev from Uptown. And then as a bigwig fashion executive, I was Beverly Smith fashion executive. And then, I became Bevy Smith when I decided I wanted to have this media career. And, Bevy, Little Brown Bevy, started coming back out to play. I would say like around my early 30s, she started like scratching at the door, like, let me back in. And then by the time I was like 38, she was like, I will not be silenced. You need my help. I'm gonna get you together, girl. And thank God that I had done the introspective work, because I was able to find her, connect with her, and let her be present and let her kind of be my spokesperson. And how that changed my life and how it shifted it for the better is that now people don't think of me as this like kind of impervious, entity. For so long, I had people say things like, oh, Bevy, you don't have feelings, or, oh, Bevy, nothing shakes you, or, that kind of thing. And I was like, no, I'm a human too. I have emotions, I have feelings. I want love. I'm deserving of love, you know what I mean? And, I have people that care for me and that I care for. And that wasn't necessarily me in all those other iterations. I didn't show up in that way. Right. And so when I began to show up as Little Brown Bevy and letting her show up and show out, my life vastly improved.
Yeah, that's an important lesson too, because I think we forget, we create these characters sometimes that we present to the world, and then we get confused by the fact that people actually believe the characters that we presented to the world. Yeah. Well, I'm human. Well, you haven't shown me you're human.
Right. Yeah. But it was good for for what it was. I mean, I don't have any regrets about creating those personas, because each of those personas got me into different rooms or made me have different experiences, and all those experiences now make up the Bevy Smith that you see today. And the reason why I can have, a press run that does a Good Morning America, but also does a Breakfast Club, is because of all of those, the sum total of who I am.
Right. You were really, in this book, you really turned out to be a wonderful storyteller. Like, you paint a great picture. You feel like, you're in the moments. And it's just really one of those curl up with a glass of wine or whatever. Yeah. Whatever your choice is, and just get into it. It's a great storytelling. Paint a picture for people. People know the gentrified Harlem now, and people know the Harlem Renaissance Harlem, but paint a picture of the Harlem that kind of nurtured Bevy, young Little Brown Bevy.
Yeah, well, my Harlem, growing up when I was a little kid, like in grade school, the 1970s, and it was, the movement of Black Power. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. And so, there were lots of red, black, and green everywhere you looked. We were taught Swahili in school.
Wow.
Every day was Black history. So every day you would go into your classroom and there was a Black teacher. And there were pictures of Benjamin Banneker on the wall, or Mary McLeod Bethune, or, A. Philip Randolph. So it wasn't just Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman in February. This was every single day we learned about iconic Black people. And then also I lived across the street from the Dunbar houses, which was like a place, a really amazing apartment complex that was really built for the talented 10. Mm-hmm. And so Matthew Henson, the first, they say the first Black man to ever go to the North Pole. He was with that white explorer, I forget his name, Robert somebody. Yeah. But they say he was the first Black man, but he was his guide and he was the lead. So he was the first man to get to the North Pole. But anyway, but he lived across the street.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or, there was just this history all over Harlem. Even like you're walking down the street, and the street you're walking down is named Malcolm X Boulevard, right, or Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. You know what I mean? So there's all of this history and legacy that is attached to your community. And if you are a curious and a learned child, as I was, I realized that very early on. So that's one part of the Harlem. The other part of the Harlem is in the clutches of drugs. heroine to be specific. And it's Nikki Barnes, you know, Mr. Untouchable, who was on the cover of the New York Times magazine. You know, you guys also American Gangster, Frank Lucas, Nikki Barnes, all those guys. Well, that took place in Harlem. Mm-hmm. And that was the Harlem too that I grew up in. 116th Street was an open air drug market. And it was insanity. People nodding out all over the place. You know, people just with big swollen limbs and scratching. That part was awful. And it was scary to see people like that.
Right.
But so that was kind of the kind of like the two worlds of Harlem. And you know, my parents did such a wonderful job at making sure that we understood that we were proud and Black folks, but we lived in Harlem, but that Harlem was a part of Manhattan, and Manhattan is the epicenter of the world. So you can literally get on a train and you can go 2 train stops down, and all of a sudden there is the world of finance, media, television, fashion, all these things. It's all accessible to you. All you have to do is get on the train, and it's all right there. You know how powerful that is?
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It gives you a sense of what's possible, that there's something more than what growing up in. Even though what you're growing up in may be wonderful in many ways, it gives you a sense of what's out there, what's potential for you. And, you know, your travels in general do that. I think it's important to share, you know, you talk about that in the book a little bit, and I know you personally, so I know you take these amazing, fabulous trips. But, you know, in this age of social media, people think about it as, oh, they're being flossy and glossy and
doing it for the gram. Yeah. Well, I mean, the people do it for the gram.
Yeah.
I don't do it for the gram.
But also you learn so much about yourself when you leave the country, leave your town, leave your city. Tell us a little bit about what travel's done for your worldview, and then your picture, you know, your view of yourself as you travel the world and see all the things that exist out there.
Well, you know, my dad loved travel. He loved the world, and he didn't get a chance to travel very much. He was in World War II. He served in the Pacific Theater. So, you know, that was like when he got a chance to see that part of the world. But he loved geography and he loved history, and he gave that, passed that on to us, his 3 children, my big brother Gerald and my sister Stephanie and myself. And so when I began to really travel for myself, not for work, because I want to, you know, I think a lot of people think of travel for work as fabulous, and it is great. But there's nothing like traveling for yourself with no agenda except for what you want to see and what you want to do and what you want to explore, which is the way I travel. So when I travel, a lot of times I'm traveling because I want to see a specific type of architecture. Mm-hmm. I'll travel for art. I'll just travel because there's a culture that I want to see and experience. And so travel has, especially solo travel, has given me the ability to just know that I'm a very resourceful person. I'm a very savvy and very smart person. And that, you know, for someone, and, you know, this goes out to your female listeners, you know, oftentimes as women, the way the world is set up, they will make us believe that if we are not chaperoned by or accompanied by a man, we're less than. And I have this to tell you: when you travel the world by yourself, you become so emboldened. You really do. You just start to really become very confident, because I've been to every continent except Antarctica, and every single continent I've gone to by myself at least once. So it's been incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to get back into the book a little bit. You know, you talked about this being your first time you wrote a book. Let's talk about the process. What was that like for you? What was your process like in writing it, and what did it dig up inside you as you went through it?
Well, I knew where I wanted to start. Like I knew where I wanted to start and knew I would finish, like, you know, in real life, in real time. So knowing where I wanted to start was really about making the decision that I was going to change my life at the age of 38, when I'm unhappy at Vibe magazine at that point. And then, of course, 5 years later, I actually quit my job. By that time, I was working at Rolling Stone. So that was good. So I had an entry point. I knew that part of the story was like really weighty. And I knew that could draw people in, because I had been doing so much public speaking over the years. And I also done my Life with Vision seminars. And so I knew that that's what people really gravitated to, that part of the story. So that part was, I will say it's easy. It was easy. That part of it was easy. What wasn't easy was writing the book while I was not happy in my, in the job that I had. I was at Page Six TV. It wasn't the best and most conducive work environment. And so I was miserable. I had a very early morning call time, which is something I wasn't used to. I was not able to be my usual social butterfly self, because if you have a 7 a.m. call time or an 8 a.m. call time even, that means you have to be up by 6. That means you can't really stay out until 2 or 3. Okay, so now you're cramping my style. So I was I was miserable. And so that's what made writing the book kind of tough. And then also I had an editor leave in the middle of it. So there were lots of like twists and turns, trials and tribulations, but we got through it. And now we have the book. But it was a great experience overall. And I can't wait until I write my next book. And it'll be like such a much more Zen experience, because I'll never have another job that I absolutely hate. That will never happen again.
I believe you and I feel you on that. I know also I was just terribly troubled when I remembered the day I found out that your dad had passed away. And that was in the midst of writing the book. How did that impact that process for you?
Yeah, well, that was when I was editing the book. And yeah, that impacted the process in that, well, I stopped editing the book. It was like, I got COVID in like second week of March. So I stopped editing. And then my dad died second week of April. So I stopped editing. So I didn't go back to the book probably until May. And so that's how that impacted it. But one of the best things about it is that I was able to write a whole chapter devoted to my dad. And I was able to put his own words in the book. He had done an interview. And so his words were in the book. And so that was really special for me.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful chapter.
Thank you.
I mean, if for no other reason for people buying the book, and there are plenty of reasons to buy it, they should buy it for that chapter. It's wonderful. It feels very, very honest and transparent. And it's just beautiful, Bevy. I don't want to stay all deep and introspective, and I do want to talk about the book a little more without giving too much away. So let's just briefly touch on some things from the book. How's that first boyfriend of yours? You still friends with him?
Yeah, the first boyfriend of mine, so funny, I didn't put it in the book. I don't think I put it in the book, but he cheated on me with a girl and they're still married.
You did not put that in the book.
Yeah,
that's my revelation for this interview.
That's your revelation. That's your revelation. Yeah. They're still married to this day. So isn't that awesome? Like, we broke up and he was cheating on me with someone who was clearly the love of his life. So I think that's great.
That is great. So you guys are still cool?
Yeah. I mean, we don't see each other that often because no one in my family lives on that block anymore. So we used to go back for, block party reunions, block reunions and things like that. So, but whenever I see him, it's all love.
You also talk in the book about your first mentors, Jeff McKay and Kenny. Have you spoken to them recently, and how proud of they are you for?
Well, they've always been proud of me. I have not spoken to them since the book came out, and I don't even know if they knew I was writing the book. So I now, like this week, I'm starting to get like a grasp, but even though next week I have crazy press obligations as well. So but I need to have a real moment with them. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take 10 minutes in between interviews and call them and tell them they know how much they've meant to me because we've always kept in touch. We've never lost touch. So they've known me from, 18-year-old receptionist to TV personality, diva lady. You know what I mean? They've known me throughout, and they really do mean so much to me. And, Jeff is like my career daddy, and that it's so funny because I talk about in the book that like real mentors want you to win, with them or without them. Mm-hmm. And so that's the kind of guy Jeff is. And he's never taken credit for my success, which is also something that really great mentors do. Because I cannot tell you how many people have tried to lay claim to my success. And I will also give Andy Cohen credit for that as well. because he never tries to take credit for me, you know, even though he gave me Fashion Queens. I mean, but clearly I was good at TV and I clearly know fashion. So thank you, Andy. But he's not like, I found her, I discovered her, I polished her up and put her on TV. No, no, no. You know, but really great mentors or allies, people that support you, that's the mark of a good one. So if you got people in your life that have done things for you and every other day they want to talk about what they did for you, or when you start shining real big and they want to call up everybody and tell them, well, you know. Right. That's not a good mentor. That's not someone who's really there for you. Because, you know, some things don't need to be said, you know.
And people that really want to see you win are just doing it because they're doing it, not because they want something out of it. You have a lot of great friendships and relationships with gay men. How much of that comes from your love of your big brother, or how much is gay men being attracted to your personality? What kind of fuels that for you?
You know what? I mean, well, one, my big brother, but my big brother is like 65 years old. So he's a very different type of a gay man than what you see today, because gay men today have so much more freedom and latitude in which to be 100% and completely themselves. You know, we have a lot of platinum gays out there in the world. You know what I mean?
Indeed, we do.
Men that never even tried or attempted to date a woman. You know what I mean? And I think, like, in my brother's era, that's not a thing. Like, you had to at least try to make the effort to be or appear as a heterosexual.
Right.
And so I think there's my brother, what he gave me, not to do anything with homosexuality, just more about creativity and freedom. That's what he gave me. And I think that as far as my relationships with gay men, Jeff and Kenny were gay. Also, you know, I grew up in Harlem. Harlem has always had a very healthy and vigorous gay community.
Healthy and vigorous. Love those adjectives.
Yes, very. And I remember just being a kid in grade school, and we had gay friends. We had two friends. My friend Tucci, I always introduce him as my original gay friend. He was like 8 years old. Wow. And he was gay.
At 8 years old?
Huh?
At 8 years old?
At 8 years old, he was gay. And he was amazing. Now, we weren't using those kind of terms or anything like that, but he was very much who he was, and he was not trying to shift or make people comfortable or any of that. And we were children. And would people sometimes call him names as we got into junior high school? Yes, but he was also very fly. His mother was a big deal in the community, and he wasn't afraid to fight. So it was what it was. So it's so funny because when I went out into the world, I didn't even really know that gay had a stigma attached to it. Right. Because I had just always been around gay people. And I guess, like, if someone's calling you a name, but everybody in on the block, I called a name. You know what I mean? So it was like, that name wasn't any more different, you know, than maybe calling somebody a tar baby, but, you know. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's like they're being picked on because they're gay. It was just like, well, that's an easy, silly thing for people to say, an ignorant thing for people to say. But the gay men that I knew from my community were very proud to be gay. So I didn't even know anything about people that would feel kind of like shy or uncomfortable about being who they were. And and I gotta say, you know, Harlem, with all of our flaws, and like I just said, you know, growing up, you know, there were times when people were unkind, you know, but again, it was unkind across the board. They would find something that they could like stick a pin in you about, and that's what they would do. But for the most part, I only saw Black gay men in my community holding their own, and never ever being, I don't want to say they weren't being bullied, but what I will say is they gave as good as they got.
Right. They weren't victims.
They were not victims. They were not victims. they fought back with their words and sometimes with their fists. My sister, who was friends with Gene Anthony Ray, Tony Ray from Fame, Leroy.
Fame, yeah.
And he was an amazing man because when he would come back from LA, and you know, he had that body that was sickening.
Body, yada, yada.
Oh my God, like you have no idea. And imagine him coming onto the block, and you know, this is like the 80s. White tennis shorts this small.
The teeny tiny tennis shorts, yeah.
With a ass that's pulsating, with thighs that are bulging, with those cornrows going back, with gold upon gold jewelry looking like Mr. T, with a shirt off, walking onto the block with all the hoods and all the thugs and being like, what's up? And if someone did say something, sometimes he'd be like, I know you're not laughing because I just had you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's where I come from. That's why I love a Miss Lawrence, honey. I love the people that are like, what happened?
Okay. And how proud we are, or how proud of Miss Lawrence are we?
Oh, I'm so proud of my daughter's son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm so proud of him.
Those clips look amazing. One last thing on the book before we get to this last couple of questions I have. You know, you remember when you talk about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, being so important for successful people. Do you remember the moment when you realized how important that was and that you had actually become that?
I don't remember the exact moment, but I think it was probably when I decided to change my life when I was 38. You know, I was just like, okay, I need to, you know, kind of own this. And I can't crumble every time something doesn't exactly go my way. You know, you have to keep going, you have to be resilient, and you have to persevere. But one of the other things, you do have to be okay with it not being perfect. And sometimes that's a very uncomfortable space to live in. But once you can kind of like, you know, understand that, you know, as Mary J. Blige said in one of my songs I've been quoting, everything will be all right, everything's gonna be okay. Trouble don't last always. And so that's why I kind of take with me. And so whenever I'm even uncomfortable, I know that this too shall pass.
Absolutely will. You know, I love Black women, was raised by Black women, and I just think it's important for women to really think about how they're moving through the world and how the world sees them and see the world where they want to see it. You really talk about in the book about how being a muse quite often is being attached to some man's version of things and how women need to take back their power and be something more than that. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, you know, for as much as I want to be in a, no, I'm not going to say that, for as much as I am going to be in a very loving and healthy and monumental relationship before I close my eyes, I also understand now that I don't need a man to actually fulfill me. So I'm already fulfilling this first finale, darling, to quote Stevie Wonder. That's what I'm working on. I'm working on that opus, and that opus is me. And so, but you know, the way the patriarchy is set up, oftentimes women do not feel like they have anything in their lives unless they have a man. Mm-hmm. You know, you can see, I mean, we see it time and again, very successful women who give all their power away at the first sight of a swinging dick. And that's not a criticism because I know I've been there. And sometimes the folks ain't even got to ask you for your power. You willingly give it up.
Right.
I literally was trying to get married so I would not have to work and so that someone could take care of me. That sounds insane to me now. Because if I do that, then who am I really except the wife of? And for someone who that works for, that is great. But I would not be an author. I would not be a world traveler. I would not be a TV personality. I would not be a radio host. I wouldn't be all these amazing things that for me make me happy and overjoyed and so proud. I'm so damn proud of the fact that I've carved out a life that I really enjoy and that I get great satisfaction out of. And so my life is cake. And when I get my man, he's gonna be my icing. Cake is very good without any icing. The icing sometimes just makes it a little better.
And then you can eat the cake and the icing together.
There you go.
All right, I'm gonna drop some names, and when I say these names, just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. Tupac Shakur.
Um, a gift.
Biggie.
Uh, a pistol.
Donald Trump.
An asshole.
Renee Billy.
Oh, my sister.
Jeff Sledge.
Oh, my Jeffy.
Emil Wilbekin.
Visionary. Maverick.
Cheryl Caligari.
She's my sister from another mister. Oh my goodness, Sherry. Dr. Sherry, honey. That's my girl. Dr. Sherry, as you know, she plays throughout the book from half-baked medical advice to loaning me money while she's living in communist China. So yeah.
Loaning money at a critical time too. That's
yes.
Amazing. And the last name I want to, Gus Lee Smith.
Oh. My everything.
You know, in a world where Black men are constantly under attack, as a Black man, I think it's important to paint a more complete picture of who we are. And to that end, would you mind sharing some brief reflections on your dad? Think about, and one of those comments that he said in the book, and I am going to share this because it was just profound. When he said, think about how much money you're making them if they're paying you that much. Just reflect a little bit on your dad, and we're gonna take it home from here.
My dad was just wise, and he was very sage, and he did not suffer fools. He was very loving. He gave us everything that he has. He put his family first. It was his 3 children meant everything to him, and he was just a protector and a great provider. And he would always say, I never want to make y'all ashamed. And, you know, I hope y'all never shame me. And I don't think we ever did shame him. And he certainly always made us very proud. We were always very proud to see our daddy coming, you know, when we were little kids, like him coming down the street. We would always run to him. And, you know, when he got older in his 90s and when his health started failing, you know, we were there for him the way he was there for us. And so one of my Smithyisms is you can only get out what you put in. My daddy put in a lot into us. And so his last years of his life, he got so much out of us because we had to do it. And it was not a chore. Was it inconvenient sometimes? Yes. But we were happy to do it. All 3 of us, all 3 of his children were happy to do it, to be there for him. And I think that that's the real measure of a man, you know, when people do things for you, not out of a sense of obligation, like, oh, well, you know, honor thy mother and father. You should do this for your parents. No. We wanted to be there for our dad because he had been there for us always.
What a wonderful story. And how is your amazing and equally fabulous mother doing?
My mom is amazing and fabulous, as you just said. She's doing incredibly well. She has said that she hates that the book has naughty bits in it because she would have loved if children could have read the book. And I said, well, Mommy, it's not a book for children. So there's that. But she's doing really well. And she's beautiful and spunky and just fly and all the things. And, you know, doing this book tour means I haven't really spent a lot of time with her in the last 2 weeks, which sucks. But, you know, hopefully everything I'll be able to like start maneuvering my life again where I can like see her at least a couple of times a week, which is what I like to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, send her my love and give her a hug when you get to see her again in person. And I want to leave us with this. When you were doing your amazing Life with Vision events, and we met, and that's when we met actually, when I was photographing those events for you, you said something really profound and wonderful to me. You said, Ricky, I was thanking you for, you know, hiring me to do the gig. And you said, you're welcome, but I'm happy to do it because you're a wonderful photographer. And you're in a city where there's lots of great photographers. So that's not special. But what's special is how you connect with people makes them feel good and makes them want to give you the kind of picture nobody else can get. Now, that comment changed my life in that it made me take a look on the inside of what my red soul proposition might be or what a piece of it was. And that's something you talk about in the book. I would love for you to leave people who are listening, regardless of their age, with something that you want them to know about life, about being authentic, and about making their dreams come true.
Well, to the folks who are listening to this podcast, just know this: you're listening to two people who have had a lot of twists and turns, have had multiple careers, that are now in their 50s, and that are now really honing in into their purpose. You know, I'm meant to be a teacher, a mentor, a guide. That is what I'm meant to do. And so moving forward, I am going to do a TV show where I'm going to be a fairy godmother, where I'm going to be helping people find their purpose and helping people change their lives. I am going to do that show. And Ricky is doing this podcast, but he's also, you know, in school. And he's doing a myriad of other things, including, you know, I'm so proud of you when you started producing for Pastor Mike. Really proud of you for that. Just all the different things that you've been able to do. And that's something that I really want to drive home, is that anything that you've ever been interested in, please pursue it. I've taken DJ classes, photography classes, screenwriting classes, all kinds of classes, because what I'm not going to do is when I close my eyes, it's not going to be, well, I'm not going to close my eyes talking about I wish I had.
Right. I'm
trying to leave this world with no stone unturned. I'm going to turn over every stone and be like, where's the key? No, those stones that you get with you hide the key.
You hide the keys there. Yeah.
Where's the key? And so that's what I would love to impart to the listeners. Please, please, please explore, be adventurous, be curious. And sometimes you might have to do that alone. And it doesn't mean that you have to travel far and wide to do these things. I'm not advocating everyone should go to Bali. But what I am saying to you is that whatever it is that God has put in your spirit, in your heart, that you're like, I've always been drawn to that, you owe it to yourself to at least attempt it. You have to. Because otherwise, you will wake up one day with regrets and too old to do anything. Even though I don't even know about too old, because shoot, Cicely Tyson is 96 years old and her autobiography comes out in like 2 weeks. I'm actually interviewing her on my radio show. I'm having a whole hour-long conversation with Cicely Tyson. And again, that's something like, you know, 20 years ago, I was an advertising executive. Mm-hmm. And now I'm interviewing Cicely Tyson and have interviewed some of the biggest stars in the world. So all that to say is this: it gets greater later. It's never too late. Don't rest on your laurels. Everything is as it should be, but you do not let anyone dictate to you who you are and who you can become.
Amazing. And those are words to live by, not just because they're beautiful, y'all, but because she's living them and she's living proof of the truth of them. Bevy Smith, thank you so much. Again, the book is Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, Best Friend by Bevy Smith. It's available wherever you buy your books. It'd be great if you bought it at a Black-owned bookstore somewhere.
Yes, it would be.
But absolutely support the book no matter what. Thank you so much, Bevy.
Thank you, baby.
See you soon.
I love you.
Love you.
Bye, Ricky.